Hello and welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon, and today I'm giving my first thoughts on Wes Anderson's new film, Asteroid City.
Well, that was a movie.
As always with Wes Anderson films, there's an all-star, absolutely jam-packed full cast, but I'm going to try to mention everybody. So Jason Schwartzman is the main character, but it's also starring Scarlett Johansson and Tom Hanks. It also has lesser roles by Jeffrey Wright, Bryan Cranston, Edward Norton, Jake Ryan, Grace Edwards, Liev Schreiber, Sophia Lillis, Matt Dillon, Steve Carell, Tony Revolori, Bob Balabin, Tilda Swinton, Jeff Goldblum, Adrian Brody, Hong Chow, Willem Dafoe, Margot Robbie. I'm sure I'm missing somebody in there, but there is just a massive cast here. Absolutely fantastic cast in here, as always. Like I said, with Wes Anderson films, and of course also he wrote and directed it, as he usually does. So, where to begin with Asteroid City? Asteroid City's weird, guys. And I know Wes Anderson is always weird, but I think this movie is weird enough that it may off-put even some Wes Anderson fans. I know all of his movies are weird. That's kind of part of his quirk. Obviously, he's very quirky, he's very odd, very stylistic, but if you're a fan specifically for his more mainstream movies, his more recent movies like Moonrise Kingdom or Grand Budapest Hotel, you may not actually be a fan of this movie because this one is odd. You may also love it for that, but it's different than his more accessible movies. This is less accessible. It's also the first time I've seen a movie by him where it really kind of made me think at the end about what was being said. Normally in Wes Anderson films, it's pretty straightforward with the message, if there even is one. It's kind of just, here's the plot, there you go. It's very entertaining, usually really funny, stylistically amazing, got great acting, great directing, all those things, but normally it's kind of just, it is what it is, there you go, and we're done. This movie leaves you with a thought. That's kind of different for Wes Anderson, but what do I mean by it's really weird? So one of the biggest things about this movie, I guess it's kind of building off of, frankly, how French Dispatch was told in a unique and weird way, how that movie was 3 short stories as told by 3 different writers that were all working for a magazine. This is both a play that is being told and the story of that play being written and made and acted out. So you've got the story of Asteroid City, but you also have the story of Ed Norton's character, who is a playwright coming up with the play of Asteroid City and then casting it and then having it go into production. The story from Asteroid City is interspersed with this other story about the making of it, which already is kind of just a little bit odd, but it goes beyond that to the actors in Asteroid City, the movie, are sometimes the characters and sometimes the actors playing the characters, and it can be a little bit blurred lines at times. Most of that comes in the form of Scarlett Johansson's character, who is both the character in Asteroid City, who's this mother of this character that has come to Asteroid City for an event, but she's also the actress playing this role, who is very quirky, very interesting. She puts on a makeup to make it look like she has a black eye, not because it's called for in the script, but because she feels that the character would have that. And so you've got this whole different dynamic going on there, and some of the actors are talking to each other as actors, while other actors are talking to each other as characters. It's kind of hard to follow, and like I said, it's not as accessible, it's not as readily available to the mainstream as most of Wes Anderson movies are, even though Wes Anderson is very artsy to begin with. This feels like another step beyond that, where it's just a little bit weirder and a little bit harder to grasp and a little bit harder to get. You may be asking yourself, what's the point throughout most of this movie? Now, it does give you a, this is the point near the end of the movie, but even that point that is given may not be satisfying to a lot of viewers. It's not a very solid point, but I don't want to get into that yet. I want to get into that in spoilers, but what I'm saying is, this probably won't be as popular. Scratch that. I know it won't be as popular as his most popular films. That doesn't mean it's not as good as those movies. It's just weird and a little bit inaccessible to people who don't like really weird things. And I say that because I know Wes Anderson is always a little bit weird, but this is weirder than he typically is. So even if you like Wes Anderson, this still might not be the movie for you, but if it is the movie for you, by the end of the movie, you're going to really enjoy it. And on top of that, it's still got the usual Wes Anderson humor and quirk and, directing style. It's still really fun. It's still his style. So if you're just there for the ride and you don't care if there's substance, you don't care what's being said, you just want to watch his unique style with visuals and gags and all of those things, then that's still all there for you to enjoy too. I really did enjoy it personally, but I think some people will be disappointed by it, especially if you're like really invested or interested in this story that could be being set up here with, alien invasion and what's going on here, and then what you get is really honestly a story about a playwright. It's very little about the events that are happening in there and more about the behind the scenes at the core of it. So just have an expectation in mind of what it really is, and not maybe what it was advertised as. But really, if you're like me, you just go to a Wes Anderson movie to see Wes Anderson and whatever he's going to do, and it's hard to be disappointed because you're going to get it. Now, not every movie he puts out is his best movie. I talked about French Dispatch when that came out and how I didn't quite like it as much as Moonrise Kingdom or Grand Budapest Hotel, and I feel the same way about this. This wasn't my favorite Wes Anderson movie, but it still was very enjoyable and, like I said, different for him. Different in the way that it does make you think at the end. I will be thinking more about what this movie was trying to say in it versus something like Moonrise Kingdom, which is my favorite movie by Wes Anderson. I absolutely adore and love that movie, but there's not really like a hidden meaning or a deep thought associated with that movie. It's just, this is a good movie, I enjoy every second of it, and then we're done. This movie will make you kind of think a little bit and wonder about what it's saying. So yeah, that's the difference. Like I said, still enjoyable, but some people may be disappointed by it. Wes Anderson's already a bit of a niche thing, and this feels even more niche than normal, so it may or may not be for you. Just be ready for that. But that's what I think. I'm going to get into spoilers now, so click away if you don't want anything spoiled, but please like, share, and subscribe if you're new here first. Thanks guys, bye. So spoilers. Yeah, so like I said, it's kind of more focused on the behind the scenes, even though we do spend more, film time, screen time on the story of Asteroid City being played out. What really matters is, what's being said. And you do have that moment where Jason Schwartzman's character breaks that fourth wall. He even actually looks at the lens. He looks at the camera for a split second, and I really enjoyed that because it was a little moment of like, I am aware, and I really liked that. But he has this moment where he's just having a crisis of character, where he's like, I don't know what my character is, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't get the point of this. So he walks offset from Asteroid City, the movie, walks offset into the play version, goes behind scenes, and he's passing by Jeff Goldblum, who played the alien. By the way, the alien is the best part about this movie. I loved it so much. It's just like this stop motion alien in the middle of the movie that's like so obviously fake effects. And I guess the idea was you could go two ways with this. You could try to make it look realistic and it wouldn't look good anyway, or you could go full camp and it would be hilarious. And they went full camp in the Wes Anderson style, and I loved it. It was so funny, just the way it posed for the camera. I loved that. And anyway, so then he walks back and meets up with Adrian Brody's character, who is the director, and talks to him. And it's like, what is the point? What are we doing? What is my motivation? What are we trying to say here? And the basic idea was like, who knows? Maybe there's a point, maybe there's not, because the writer, the Ed Norton character, he's the writer, he's the mastermind behind this whole story. Everybody else is kind of just doing it. So it's like, is there a point? We don't know. We're just kind of doing it. There may be a meaning, there may not be. We're all just actors acting out our part. And obviously this is kind of like a metaphor for life. We don't know what the meaning of life is. We all just know that we have a role and we're just going to choose whether or not to act it out. And so I think that was kind of why there was blurred lines between the acting in the movie and the acting in, the play. And I found that very interesting. Like I said, that's something very different that Wes Anderson doesn't typically do in his movies, to have like a metaphor like that, have an allegory like that. that. So I found that very interesting. I love those kind of messages and allegories in movies. Just wasn't expecting that from a Wes Anderson film. And like I said, if you don't like that kind of stuff and you're just kind of caught off guard by how weird it is, it may put you off. That might not be what you're going to a Wes Anderson movie for. It may just be too much, too highbrow, too over your head. And I wouldn't blame you if you thought that. It's definitely different than, you know, like I said, Moonrise Kingdom or Grand Budapest Hotel or those more accessible movies of his. I don't think that means it's bad in any way. I still really enjoyed it, but it's not going to be for everybody. As far as the actual rest of the movie, it does, yeah, leave you at several points beyond just enjoying the visuals and the stylism of it. You may find yourself, even before Schwartzman's character gets there, wondering what the point is and feeling the emptiness of it, because it kind of feels at times that we're just going through the motions of a movie, going through the motions of a plot. Like, I mean, there's great acting on multiple levels from these different actors who are acting slightly differently, knowing that they're playing actors playing characters, so they're acting at multiple levels, and that's all very good, but you're just kind of, at least I was going like, so what is the point? And I got there, and luckily Schwartzman's character, you know, was written to have that moment as well, because otherwise I would have left this movie completely dissatisfied, because I just would have felt like it was pointless and empty. And I think it was quite the risk by Wes Anderson to make a movie like that, because I feel like a lot of audiences will probably tap out early thinking this is pointless and empty, when his point kind of being, yeah, life is in a way pointless and empty, but it's still beautiful and we're just going for it. That is a risk, that is a gamble as a filmmaker, to tell that story and try to show it to a mainstream audience. A lot of people won't get that. A lot of people won't wait around long enough to hear that. Even critics, you'll see some critics like tap out before then. A lot of critics, if they're not satisfied with the first hour of a movie, they're already writing their review of it before the movie ends. And so I think that was quite the risk by Wes Anderson, and I don't know if it's going to pay off. It'll pay off for some viewers for sure, and maybe that means that therefore it pays off, because if people like it, then that's all you need. You really only just, as a creator, as a filmmaker, as an artist, you're really just making it for yourself. So as long as he's proud of it, then I guess it pays off. But I think there will be a smaller audience for it because of that. But regardless, yeah, I think that will probably affect a couple of things about this movie for me, like a rewatchability factor. I don't know how much I'm gonna care about anything that happens in this movie, and so therefore want to rewatch it, when the whole point of this movie is like, we're all just kind of doing things because we're doing things. Not like Moonrise Kingdom or Grand Budapest Hotel, where there's characters and you're rooting for them and you hope that there's a specific outcome. In this movie, it's just like, well, okay, the point is that we don't know what the point is. Also, we're going to have this really obscure meta way of talking about things by having a writer write about a writer that's writing a play. We're going through these levels here, and yeah, like I said, that's gonna put off a lot of people. There is also another point to the movie said right at the end, around the same part that they're explaining everything, that I'm going to be pondering, because I don't entirely know what it means, because they've got this line that they repeat many times. For context, there's a scene that he's trying to come up with. The writer that Ed Norton's playing, that this movie's based around, seems like one of those very artsy-fartsy, obscure writers that is just making weird things that nobody quite understands. And so he's got this scene that he wants to write where everybody's asleep in the scene, and it's supposed to put the audience to sleep. Very artsy, very just stupid. Like, this can't work. Nobody wants to see that. But what he's doing is he's working with this acting class, and he's telling them all right, go to sleep. And so they all start acting like they're sleeping. And then one of the actors calls out, "You can't wake up unless you first fall asleep." And then somebody else says it, and somebody else says it, and then they're all chanting it. Even the song during the credits, it says that as its opening line. You can't wake up unless you first fall asleep. What does that mean? You know, that's a really intriguing thing to say, but what does it actually mean? I do have a couple of theories, because the second line in the song is, you can't fall in love and land on your feet. So it's like the the pros and the cons of things, like the every rose has its thorn kind of thing. I think there's also an idea there about how, like, you can't, succeed unless you've got the dream first. Like, you can't realize something unless you first envision it. Maybe that's what they're trying to say. I'm not sure what they're trying to say. I could be reaching. I'm just trying to understand what is being said there. But like I said, this is not, typical Wes Anderson, at least how I'm familiar with him. So we're going into uncharted territory where he's going to be giving riddles like that at the end of his movie and talking about metaphors. And so if that's your thing, great, awesome. I'm just saying there's going to be a limited audience for this movie. Not everybody will appreciate this movie that way. So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. It wasn't my favorite Wes Anderson movie though, to be honest. I don't know. I like I said, I'm not really planning on rewatching it anytime soon, but I will be thinking about it. So there's some give and some take there. There's some sleeping and some waking there. Some rose and some thorn. But I don't know. I did still enjoy it, and I think it's definitely worth watching at least once. I don't know. Maybe after I've thought about it some more, I'll want to rewatch it and see if I pick up on anything new. But my initial reaction is like, that was good, not great. At least as far as Wes Anderson is considered. I mean, you get used to, you get spoiled with these great directors, when Nolan or Anderson or Tarantino put out a movie that's not as good as they normally put out, everybody goes like, oh, they've lost their touch, this movie sucks, when in reality it's still better than most movies that are coming out. So I feel like this movie still has a shot at making my top 10 movies of the year list, but it's not, an automatic shoo-in like, oh, this is a #1 movie of the year. Like if Moonrise Kingdom, if I had just walked out of Moonrise Kingdom or Grand Budapest Hotel, I'd be like, man, Wes Anderson did it again, best movie of the year. I don't even need to see the rest of the movies this year, although Nolan does have a movie coming out. But yeah, it's not one of those, but still worth seeing. It's just, like I keep saying, it's gonna have a smaller audience than his usual movies do. But I guess, a lot of people have been complaining, like, oh, his movies are too repetitive, they're too similar. Well, here you go. He tried something new. If you don't like it, shut up and get over it. He's doing exactly what you want him to. I did enjoy this movie a lot. I had a good time. There was a puppet of a Roadrunner, because this movie was definitely inspired by Looney Tunes. It really was. And so there was this Roadrunner constantly being puppeteered around, and the movie ended with him dancing, and I enjoyed that a lot. So yes, I did enjoy this movie. This movie left a smile on my face, and like I said, I'm going to enjoy thinking about it, questioning it, wondering about it in the future. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and of course, don't forget to like, share, and if you're new here, subscribe. Thanks guys, bye.